Good afternoon, morning, whichever time zone you're in. And we're going to be talking today about Plant 3D 2022 and what's new in it. This is my favorite release in years. So I'm pretty excited about a couple of things they've added to this functionality this year. What we're basically going to be talking about, and I am assuming my screen is showing and change screens there. If it didn't, please let me know, Ashley. But as far as today, we're going to first talk about Project Compare and Project Review and Project Sync. They all three work together through the same dialog box, but this is the part to me that is the best thing they've added. I've had this on the wish list for Autodesk for years, and they actually added it this year and took it off the wish list finally. So this has been the main thing, in my opinion, of what they did. But the second main thing they did, which was Ortho Offset Location, that's the second thing we'll talk about. That is an add-on or a new feature that I wasn't expecting, and I am very much pleased with that one also. So the two combined is what makes this such a good new version. I highly suggest everybody goes up to this version if they haven't already, just for those two alone. The additional add-on of the ISO style editor, being able to have a function for that's actually within the project setup, and how that also the addition of the extended isometric dimensioning, which is a lot of that is being just reorganized as far as the isometric dimensioning. Though they did add a few new functions under there, and the ease of working that with that ISO style editor makes it a lot easier than it has been in the past. So that's another very nice feature that would have been great by itself if it is just, to me, overshadowed with the others. And then at the end, we'll review some additional new features, enhancements, mainly things that I can't actually show you in the software because they're kind of behind the scenes type things. So we'll do that with a slide at the end just to let you know what's happened there so you can be prepared for it. So what we're going to do here first is talk about the Project Compare and reviewing that. And let me get to change my screen here to the Plant 3D 2022. So that's what you should be seeing on your screen now is 2022, and I am currently in a project called Treadstone. If you've ever watched any of my webinars in the past, you're probably familiar with seeing that particular project. It's one I use for demos and in training and everything over and over again. So this is basically the project right when we would take it to the advanced class. So this would be, it's at the point of where we went through the P&ID training, we've done the Plant 3D new user class, and this is where we would normally start the Plant 3D advanced class. And what I've done is I've got another project that we're going to use at this to compare with called Acme, which is basically Treadstone after the advanced class. So we can kind of see what we can do here at this point that we could not do in the past. So basically, if you in the project manager, which you can see is right over here, I am on the Treadstone project. I'm going to right click on the name of the project, and you will see there's a new function called Project Compare right there in the right click menu. And this is what they've added to 2022, and this is the one I was talking about that is something that I have wanted for years and had put on the wish list several years ago, and did not know they were doing it in 2022. They never marked anything on the wish list that it was even being reviewed or looked at, but it actually has been done here. And so basically here, the first dialog box, when you go to the Project Compare, it wants you to choose a project to compare to. If you hit the little down arrow, you can see I can either open a project, I can open a collaboration project from what used to be BIM 360, or I can open from Vault. Any of those three. I'm going to just open a project, and it just went to the Treadstone project. So I'm going to back off that into the S drive, where I've got another project called Acme, which is the completed project. I actually don't have any drawings in it. It's just the completed project setup. So I'm going to go ahead and open the project XML for that file, for that project. It'll open up a drawing and open up the compare and start doing the comparison. And it had a successful comparison between it. And it's letting me know all the differences it found of things that are in Acme that it does not have in the Treadstone project. Now, one thing I can do is it doesn't have to be that way. I have a little arrow here to where I can switch it to where it's looking at the Acme project and differences that are in the Treadstone project. So I can make it work from Treadstone to Acme, or Acme to Treadstone, whichever way I want to do it. I'm going to be doing Acme to Treadstone, so I've switched it back to that using the arrows here. So you can see the compare summary here. It's got some different areas of the project that it sees that are different between the two that are in Acme but not in Treadstone. And you can go through these and review them and decide whether or not you want to copy them. I'm just going to click on drawing properties here. So you can see there's a drawing property itself that's category, and the different ones there which are checked, approved, and current revision that are in the Acme project but not in Treadstone. Now I can come through here and say, well, I want checked and just accept that one, or I can pick them one at a time, or I can just pick the accept all. In this particular case, I'm going to accept all in everything that we're looking at because the Acme project is actually what I want for any project. So what you're seeing here is I have the ability to create properties, I'm just going to go ahead and start accepting all on these things, and I could accept, here's where I've got a file name format that was set up in Acme, and I could copy that right over. So I can do any kind of reports, and you can see here with the reports right here on the project reports, I can get anything from the P&ID block. So I've got different symbols and that I can accept them all. And the only thing I would like to see even more so here's the cone bottom tank and the manway. If you've taken my P&ID class, my advanced class, you've probably seen those created. And it's actually picking up anything, selection list, you name it, it's picking up and saying, hey, we're ready to pull those over, including XML files. So I'm just going to go through here and start clicking it. If I had one improvement I'd like to see them make here, I'm under the piping. You can see where the heat exchanger, where I've got some properties that have never been copied over, just showing you a few things here and there. And again, I would like to see them add and accept all of everything without me having to go through here and actually review them, because right now that's the way it's set up, is I have to go through, you can see, and review each thing, or each property, or everything, including the layer systems, everything. And you have to pull those over one at a time per item. So I'd like to see them take it a little bit further and allow me to be able to just say, you know what, I want to make these two projects the same, and just let me do it in one selection. Unfortunately, right now it's per file. Now I'm going to stop here on these support files because these are actually XML files. What you can see over here is it's telling me right now compare is unavailable. I haven't selected one. If I select one of these, now compare is available because it allows me to compare the two files. The one thing is I have to have at least some type of software to compare two XML files. I've got mine here. When you go to the gear and hit settings, set to use WinMerge. So I've actually browsed to that. I've installed that WinMerge on my computer. It's a free program you can find on the internet for comparing two different files, and I've used it for years for comparing XML files. But outside of Plant 3D, but once you set up what you're going to use, you can see file 1 will be from Treadstone, file 2 will be from Acme, and it'll compare the files and let you see exactly what is different between those files if you want to. So you can see Acme, which is on the right, has some different settings here under this property right here, and you can actually go through and review these if you need to be able to see what exactly is different. Once you've done that, I'm going to go ahead and close WinMerge, and I can actually then just accept those files if I want to copy them over. Now we're going to come back to the XML files after I've finished going through these real quick. Notice here the isometrics, I can literally copy an entire isometric style. So here my Vandelay B, which I created in a webinar several years ago, and for the isometrics, there it's found that, and I'm just going to tell it go ahead and copy it, and of course some XML files that go with it. Once you've gone through these and accepted everything, here it picked up a spec where there's changes between the specs. So there's the CS150 spec, and Treadstone is the out-of-the-box spec, and the one here in Acme is the custom one that we've created in the advanced class. So now notice the compare is unavailable on that, and it doesn't let me go to the settings on a spec because there's not any software currently to compare those, but evidently they are thinking about adding that possibly in the future also. But I'm going to go ahead and accept it. I've now accepted everything. It gives me a sync review where I can actually see the differences that's being accepted or compared over here. So I can hit sync review, and there's the project review where it's showing me everything that I've went through and selected that is going to be copied from one to the other. Because if you remember, prior to 2022, if you didn't copy the settings from one project to another when you created it, that was it. That was your one chance to do this. Now I could do this from multiple projects anytime at any point. So I could compare them and pick be very specific and copy this information. Once you're happy with what you see here in the summary, down here at the bottom, you'll see Sync Now. So I can hit Sync Now, and it is going through and copying all the information I told it to. It's already finished. From the Acme project to Treadstone, they are now identical as far as their project settings, both P&ID and Plant 3D. However, there's a couple of things I want to point out that it does not do, and that happened. I'm going to hit close. One of the things I mentioned to you is XML files. You have to remember sometimes, not all of them, if I go and do project compare again, and I'm going to choose the exact same project of Acme, it's going to find an XML file or two. In this case, it looks like it'll find one that's on the P&ID side that it's saying is different. Now, what happens is sometimes some of the settings you set will actually change an XML file. So that's what's happened here. Is after it copied the XML file over, then it went through and some other things I had selected it did. If I do the compare on this particular one, you'll see, I'm just going to kind of look at those two. Over here on the right-hand side in Acme, you can see where it's found some differences with the heat exchanger, for instance, tube temperature, and then on the left-hand side, you can see those are actually already in Treadstone. That's because some of the settings I copied caused it to rewrite in the XML files, so they're not identical. It actually, in reality, they are identical. They're just not in the same sequence. So that's what happened there. So you can, if you're looking for perfection, sometimes that may happen, and do it. I mean, I could come in here now and say, let's copy that XML file, sync it, and sync now. If I did it now, those two files are identical at this point. So now they are going to be, I did project setup instead of project compare. I apologize for that. Let me hit cancel and go back to project compare. This time when I do it, they are identical because the XML file was copied after it. So the only way to avoid it, finding something, with an XML file would be to do everything and then do the XML files, or just don't worry about it, which is what I would suggest in that particular case. They were identical files. They were just in a different sequence, so it saw them differently. The other thing that doesn't get copied are paths and templates. So if I came over here, I'm going to, I've actually got 2021 open to the Acme. So I'm going to place it on the left-hand side. We'll do Treadstone on the right. If I was to compare the project setup of the two projects, just take a second for it to open. Here's the project setup for 2022. So 2021 setup for Acme. On the left, right-hand side is 2022 for Treadstone. If you look at the paths, you'll see the support path of the templates are different. That's one thing. The template here is different. And then some of the support, well, that one's the same. Well, of course, it's the Treadstone's different, but like the equipment template here, that one didn't change. Here again, this template right here didn't get copied over. So it's not copying paths or templates. They weren't even in the list. Kind of makes sense because they can be project dependent, and they're going to have, as you can see, all these paths are going to be project dependent. So it makes sense that it's not copying those over, but it's just something you need to be aware of because, again, the Ortho template title block, if I come over here to the title block of the Ortho template, it did not set the template itself to match because that was not part of the what it's going to sync. So paths, templates, those do not get synced. As with all rules, there's always an exception. That's not true with the isometrics because they are set by the actual project's isometric style. So if I was to compare the isometric templates, those did get copied over because they got copied over with the isometric style itself. So that was the exception to the rule because it copied the entire style over. So those templates got changed. But Ortho templates, P&ID plant model templates, those things do not get synced. So just be aware of that. Everything else is good to go. And I'm going to go ahead and cancel my project setup here and go ahead and maximize back up there. Outside of that, though, it is a very slick, nice way to be able to not have to worry about if you miss something in the beginning or two projects. Those of you who are using template projects, you can now create something in your template project, copy it to other and sync it up with other projects after the fact, or you can do it vice versa. Create something new like a P&ID symbol or something in your current project and then sync that up with your template project so that it gets that change. It's going to make life so much easier for so many of us now that we can actually sync and copy these settings from one project to another after the fact. I'm very excited. If you can't tell I'm excited about this one, I apologize because that one to me was a great add-on. The next one is the offset location. So what I'm going to do is give you a little scenario here of how it comes into play. So you're looking now at another drawing of my screen, and in my project, 0, 0 happens to be the intersection of column A1 in my project. That's where I've created 0, 0. If you've used Plant 3D, you're familiar with the fact that all XREFs and everything have to line up on 0, 0, 0. No exceptions. So that has made it difficult for some people who want to put it into a real world environment. So they have to come up with workarounds for that. And so now they've added this offset location with your orthographic drawings to avoid that. So in my project, 0, 0 is at A1, the intersection of A1 there. And the 0 Z axis is the top of my concrete. Now I'm used to working with sea levels in most of the projects I work with, so that was another issue. You couldn't just do something at sea, where it was above sea level because it caused all kinds of issues. You had to be at 0, 0, 0. So my project, while it's actually 0, 0, 0 is the top of concrete column lines A1 intersection, in my civil drawing, I have a iron pin, and they have given me the east and the north dimension in feet in that civil drawing of where this project is in relationship to that iron pin. And my A1 intersection is going to be 50 feet north, 100 feet east from that iron pin. So basically, if I take that and I add 100 feet to my X dimension, and I add 50 feet to my Y dimension, offset it that way, that's going to give me a relationship to that iron pin. So basically, I need my offset location to be X and Y, that additional 100 feet in Y dimension. And I want the top of my concrete to be 950 feet above sea level. So those are the dimensions I am going to use in order to get everything onto my project. So back in AutoCAD Plant 3D 2022, I'm going to go first to the project setup. And one of the differences you'll notice on the orthographics thing is probably, if you remember right, before on the title block display page, we had also the settings for center, how you want your center lines and how you want the hidden lines. They have now been pulled into a separate page called Ortho Style Default Settings. So here's those same information that we used to see below the title block and display of the ortho settings before. They're now been pulled separately, and they have added this offset location. So for instance, if I wanted to put it in, remember I had told you what my X and the Y, I'm just going to type it in here. I could have picked probably something that wasn't as much typing, but I went ahead and did it anyways to be kind of reality of where I would say this plant was actually going to be, which in real life, and it's going to be 950 feet above sea level. I'll go ahead and say apply, and you can see it's now got the offset location for the X, the Y, and the Z recorded into my default settings. Now, let's say in real life you're rotated, it's going to be rotated 9 degrees or something like that. You could also do that to get the exact rotation of, there we go, to get the exact rotation. I like mine to stay at the 0 plane, so I'm not going to do that in this particular one. But I also want to show you that can be done individually in drawings also. So if I was going to have a civil drawing, I was placing this in, I would want to do that rotation at that civil drawing maybe, but not in my other drawings where I'm doing section cuts and stuff like that. So I could do that after the fact. Same thing with the distance here. I could do those after the fact also. But most commonly it's going to be in all my drawings. So I'm going to go ahead and have those set here. Once I'm satisfied with my offset location, I can hit OK. Now let's go see how this plays into the drawings themselves. I thought I hit OK. Try it one more time. All right, here we go. So I'm going to come over to my orthographic drawings. I've already got one here created. Now I have split this one up with match lines into 2 drawings. Normally in real life, if I was doing something like that, I would have them on 2 separate drawings. That's the whole purpose of the match lines. If you watch the webinar on the OrthoCube and orthographic views, that's what we're talking about here, is where we've added the match lines. So again, being that this was 0, 0, 0, the intersection there of A1, this one's south of that X by 3 feet. It's west by 3 feet. You can see here where I took my match lines. If they were on 2 different drawings, they would be lined up by the 45-foot and 6-inch mark. So it gives me a way of showing that information. I put it on here to show you what it was beforehand. And now I'm going to delete those views and recreate them. 3 new views. This time when I open it up, because I have set an offset location in the project itself, you can see those dimensions are in here at this point, exactly as I put them into the project properties, and I could actually change them here if I wanted to. So let's talk about first, if I'm looking at this from a top view, let's say this was going to be on the actual civil drawing, and it's going to be rotated 10 degrees. I can manually put in 10 degrees, and you can see it rotated my entire plant those 10 degrees, or whatever else. Let's say it was going to be negative 9.5. Whatever I put in there, it's going to rotate that accordingly, so I can do something a little more too realistic on that civil drawing. In my case, I'm going to leave it at 0 because that's the way I prefer to work in my actual construction documents that I'm creating here, but it is going to be basing some dimensions and things like that on the actual location where it is in reality. Now I'm going to load the ortho cube for my west side, which is basically just when, again, if you watch that other video, that other webinar, the Ortho Cube and Orthographic Views, same thing I did in there. But this time when I add it, and let's go ahead and make sure the match lines are turned on, we'll add it in here, and I'll place that one over here. I'm going to turn around. You'll be able to see it without me zooming in that those views have a different dimension than just 3 feet in there, but we'll look at those after we place the other one in here. We're going to go ahead and grab the east view. So I'll load that ortho cube in here that was predefined in that actually in the other video. We'll hit OK, and I'm just going to place it right here beside it. And that way we can see the results of that offset location. So if I zoom in here, you can see the north is set 3 feet below that offset location. This one's now 3 feet that direction. And of course, these are also using my east and west. It is physically placing my ortho view at, if I looked at here and did an ID of I'll do the center of that railing, because that would be on my XA1. You can see it's actually placing this ortho at that XYZ that was predefined in the project. So that's how it's actually working, is it's actually using that the dimension I gave it to place my orthographic drawings here, and that's how it's using those dimensions. So that's just to show you basically how it affected the plan view. Let's go take a look at an elevation real quick. Same thing in here. You can see originally elevation top of the concrete is at 0. Here's my elevation at 25 feet for my level 1. Level 2 is at 40 feet. Even a bottom of pipe here at the elevation 10 feet. So just showing you what it was originally. I'm going to go ahead and delete the view. Since these are actual dimensions, I'll have to delete those separate, and we'll create a new front view based on the offset locations that we've set in our project. So again, I'm going to load in that general arrangement top view, but change it to a front view, and we'll just place it. I'm going to turn off the match lines. We'll just place it right here on my elevation drawing. Same exact view as far as what it looks like. It's identical to the one that was here before. The only difference is if I came over here and added my ordinate dimensioning, which I have set up for the top of concrete, elevation 950 feet, because it's giving me the sea level now. Come over here on this one. It's going to be 25 feet above that, so 975 feet. This one will be an ordinate dimension 990 feet. So I'm actually getting those sea level dimensions when I look at this plant now, just like I would in any plant I would design in real life. And it's not just with the ordinate dimensions. If I came over here and took the bottom of pipe with the ortho annotate of this particular piece of pipe here and took a look at the BOP, and you can see it's placing it in there. Bottom of pipe elevation 960 feet. So again, it's giving me that where it is above sea level. If I don't want to show sea level, then I just need to change the view to a 0Z axis, and it would give me everything just like before. So it's all on how you work in your company, but it's that you're able to get these offsets now to where you can get the dimensions exactly like you need them if you do work with something like that with the C level or any other type of Z axis that you may want to define, or X and Y. It's all relative to what you set up in the project. Now let's take a look at the rotation. Just to go ahead and use that, I'll go ahead to this drawing here. If you watched that webinar of the ortho cube and the orthographic views, one of the things we addressed in there was the fact that if you want to be able to show this at a rotated view, most websites, or I didn't mean to do it that rotation, most of the time they will tell you to rotate these things, the viewports in here, and work with it that way. The problem there is this is not the front view. So if you're going to do an adjacent view of the front, it's going to give you this view. I'm not going to go through that again. This was all addressed in there. But the main thing is if you ever do anything to edit the view, it's going to put it right back as it was originally. So it's going to just flip it back around. It's no longer rotated. So it's not the best way to do it. So in that one, that particular webinar, I showed you the best thing to do, the way the software is designed at that time in previous releases, is to rotate the actual view cube, or ortho cube rather, in this view. So you would actually come in here. I'm going to go ahead and load the ortho cube in for that particular one, and then you would rotate the ortho cube, and that would solve the issue. That's not necessary anymore. It's actually easier than before because now I can literally just put in a rotation up here. And you can see it rotated the entire cube project. If I went and loaded that exact same ortho cube I had before, it's going to be out of place now because of the rotation. But if you notice here, when I look at the front, that front view is the one I wanted. So basically, I can just come in here at this point. I'm going to resize this thing. Let me turn off some O snaps so it won't snap to anything. I'm just going to resize it. That looks pretty good right there. That's basically what I had, maybe a little bit larger, but it's basically the same shape that I had before. I'm going to go back to a top view and go back here. So now I'm looking at the top view, but it did the rotation for me. Instead of having to go through and rotate that ortho cube like I did before in previous releases, here I can just give it a rotation right there. Everything rotates. And if I was at a 10 degree of the whole plant, then I would just rotate the whole plant another 90 degrees. So it'd be 100 degrees and get the same effect. But now, just like before, if I did an adjacent view, it sees the front view correct based on that rotation. So I can line things up and get the same thing. So just like we did before in that previous release where I showed you the workaround to accomplish this same thing, now I can just simply go in there and say, rotate it 90 degrees and I'm done. I don't have to do anything else, and it will remember it in this drawing from that point on forward. So they've made it a simpler method that's even better than the way I showed you before. So that functionality is now built into it. So that's what I can do with the offset location and the rotation now. I can do it on an individual drawing. I can do it on the entire project, however I need to accomplish what I need to do on my drawings at this time. So I'm going to go ahead and save this drawing, and we're ready to talk about the next thing that they've changed, because that's pretty much it for the this particular one. What I'm going to do is go ahead and take 2021 back up here, and let's go ahead and put this over here on the right. So now we're going to talk about the isometric changes. that they have made. And again, at the end, I'll look at questions if Brett hasn't already answered them and see if there's any on what we've talked about so far with the project compare and the offset location. But for now, looking at the isometrics, we're going to just compare what we had in the past. So the left-hand side is my 2021 version, and then I'll do the same exact thing over here. Now we're not going to create any isometrics. This is really just to show you the changes that have been made. So I'm going to come over here to my isometric drawing settings in 2021. Here's my isometric drawing settings in 2022. The first thing you'll notice, and this is the main thing they've done, is they've reorganized. Now this is very minor at this point. You can see themes, annotations, dimensions have just been reorganized into a different, which really is a more logical way because annotation and dimensions are controlled by the themes. So here they've reorganized to where now themes is above. If you looked at isostyle setup, there's been some minor changes here. For instance, you don't see spool format here right now because they've put it under drawing type. So you choose either a spool fabrication or our isometric type of setting right there. So they've made some small changes like that, very minor. But the main thing, and I'm also looking at Vandalay B in both. So this again is my custom one that we're looking at. So it's been laid out a little bit different, but very, very minor. Everything's still there as far as that's concerned. I need to bump this out of my way where I can see. Right here, there's a new button that was not there before, and this is your ISO style editor. If I click on that, I'm going to go ahead and say save the changes. So this is in 2022. I now have an ISO style editor where I've got an editor for the ISO config XML. About a year ago, I did a webinar called To Isometrics and Beyond, where we concentrated on things you can do only in the ISO config XML file. That's what we're looking at here. So if I was to redo that webinar today, this would be the method I would be using to modify that file. As a matter of fact, if you click on file name format here, these are the changes that some of the changes we made in that webinar are showing up here at this point. You have two ways you can look at files here in the ISO style editor. You can look at it by table, which I love. That was a nice add-on. Or you can look on it as code. Now, if you look at it as code, and you watch that other webinar, this is what you saw in the other webinar, only I was using Foxy. Here, I'm just using the editor they provided. You can see notes are in green. The answers, any kind of variable is in red, and what it's set to is in blue. So you kind of got some color coding, but we saw that also in Foxy. So that's not much different. But if you look at it in table form, you can see notes are in gray up here in this gray area here. I can actually hide those by clicking down here on this eye. That takes the notes to where they're out of my way, and all I'm seeing is the settings. Now, when you see something in blue, that tells you there's more in the tree. I can literally select that particular blue model property, and it went down the tree to where it's located in the table form. And that's a lot faster and easier than what we did in the previous webinar, because I can get in here, set the names, set the attributes, whatever I need to there. So this is exactly how it was done in that other one. Just to show you the difference here, like this use spool name as file name. If I hit code, you can see that is right here where it's being set, and it's set to false. If I look at table, it's just a box. I activate it, go look at code, it's now set to true. So it's literally, instead of having to go in here and find it and set it true, false, or whatever else, I can literally just, in a lot of these, click on, turn them on or off, and that controls how it's being set here in the sheet in the code. So it's a little bit more user friendly is the point here. So that's the ISO style editor. Now we're going to come back to this in a minute and show you how this can work with other settings that we're doing. first I just want to kind of give you an overview of simply how it's actually working as far as the editor itself. I'm going to close this by just hitting the X. I'm not going to save any changes because I really didn't make any changes that I want to keep. I was just showing you how things can be clicked. So that's the ISO style editor, and it will stay right up there for the ISO config for this particular style on every one of the different dialog boxes. Now I could click through the dialog boxes. None of them have changed but themes and dimensions, other than some minor stuff like what I showed you there with the spool thing. We're going to start with themes because everything about dimensioning is what they kind of fine-tuned here, and you can see there's a major difference between how you view the themes from 2021. Here on 2021, you've got some different settings here on the themes, same settings here, symbols, there it is there, enable, annotations and dimensions. Bill of materials is grayed out because that's handled in the overrides in the branch piping, but here you can see it's the same thing before. They just said it was display, and it's still grayed out. So these are actually the exact same settings between the two projects, so you can kind of see how everything is working there. Now in addition, we have these dimension types of the themes, but they've reorganized. So I don't see them here because this was really not so much to do with themes as it had to do with dimensions. So they have moved them to the dimensions where they go. So we'll get back to that in a little bit. But here you can see different settings. I'm going to have to move this again out of my way because it's blocking some things that I can't see. Some different settings here that are pretty much the same, but as you start going through overrides, now we're seeing continuation connection, existing piping, fitting to fitting, small bore. That was here in the past. If you go over here to the themes on 2021, there's the continuation, fitting to fitting, existing piping, small bore. So they still have those same settings here, but now they're just under this override section. If we hit small bore piping in 2021, let's take a look at that. Come over here, small bore piping. You can see, again, the same symbol scale. What's being checked here and enabled, but you'll notice here they've added small bore includes sizes up to 2 inches. Well, you were able to do that in the past also, but it was on the dimensions tab, not the themes tab. So if you came over here to dimensions in 2021, here's the alternate line settings for small bore piping. Again, they've reorganized this thing to where the items are together where they're supposed to, and you don't have to hunt them down as much. That's the nice thing they've done here is organized it to be more logical and user friendly. So the same information may have been able to have been set in the past. Now it's just all together. Small bore piping, here over here, themes, small bore piping. So everything is together and organized to where you can change things where they should be and where you're looking for them. If I go over here to branch piping, offline connection vent piping, again, they're right here. There's the offline and there's the vent drain. Let's take a look at the vent drain. Here you can see I've not only got the same information here, but I've got some additional stuff down here. And I've also got maximum number of components and maximum number of pipes. Now they're grayed out. Same thing here if I start looking at the ends with and the contains and things like that. But this is all the settings that are related to vent drain piping in the XML file. So I'm seeing all the information that used to all I just saw was what I could change. Now I can see all the information. I can't change it here, but I can see it. But because I have the ISO style editor, I can change it here. Now here, one other thing, notice the theme has been enabled. Right there's where I enable the theme. It's either on or off. Just by the simple click, just like before. But here, let's say I wanted to change the maximum number of components and pipes. I can simply go to the ISO editor, open it up. I could search, I could go down to themes and locate it, or in this case, I'm looking for vent drain. So I'm just going to look for the word vent. Notice it's highlighted themes and filters because that's where it found the word vent in the entire ISO config file. So now if I open up themes, there's branch pattern theme vent. Come here, click on that. Notice here, there's that maximum component count, maximum pipe count. So now, and if I go through here, I can see everything here is in this area of my ISO config file. I'm just going to change two things. I'll change this to 8. I'll change my maximum pipe to 2. Go ahead and hit save. Now here, you can see those changes. So it's easy for me to be able to say, to look and find in all these settings, all this information that's there, been there all along. I can now get to it while I'm in my project setup a lot easier, find it, locate it, make the change. It's so much easier than it was in the past. If you remember that other webinar, I took you through each section one by one and changes you could make, and it was pretty complex. It's not anymore. You can find stuff so easy in that ISO config XML file and make those changes. So while they haven't pulled everything into the project setup completely yet, they gave you a method to where you can get to it and make those changes so much easier than you could in the past. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Dimensions tab and the changes there. Again, you still have things such as text height, things like that. Your offset distances, they're still here, but now the end to end, the string locating, all that being activated is right here instead of being just on the themes tab where it was in the past. So if I come to themes, I'm going to go ahead and put it back on default, which matches this one. You can see the end to end is activated on the default. If I go to end here, I'm on default here. I could change it to one of the others. Since I was on default here, I'm just looking at it here. They all work the same. And you can see now the inline branch is set to center. Well, that's what it was set to here. So the settings are still here, just like before. I just got some little dialogues now to where I can see kind of what they're pointing out in the different places. What I couldn't do before from this project setup is add additional anchors. These were my anchors. That was my choices. The only way to add additional ones were to go into the ISO config, find the section, do all the now I could just hit add a new dimension anchor. So I'm going to add one for the T's. So I'm going to say at the T point, I'm going to add an anchor. I want the end type to only work when it's butt welded, because all my T's are butt welded in my project. So I'm only going to have it working for butt. If I use a flange T, it'll ignore those. It'll use the flange version. But here for the butt welded T's, I've added an anchor. I could also come in here and add additional conditions, such as saying, if it's a certain size, a certain spec, pressure class. I could come in here and say if the material is carbon steel. I've added it. It's only going to work with carbon steel butt welds or stainless steel, something like that. Add that dimension anchor. It's been added in there. So if I have a spec change from carbon steel to stainless steel, it's going to view that as a point, an anchor point in my isometrics that it's going to do a dimension, and I could set it to center or both ends or one particular end, whatever I wanted to. I could come in here and add my own exclusion. So I could say, I want to add an exclusion here to where if it's a cross, I'm just making this up as I go. There's a cross, and it is butt welded cross. Don't exclude anchors there. Or maybe that probably would have been better to be a flanged anchor cross. If it's a flange cross, exclude those. Don't include them, even though I have flanged elsewhere. And of course, if you don't want something, you can delete the exclusions and you can delete the anchors also. So you can add your own, you can delete them, get as specific as you want to right here in my dialog box of the project setup. So it gives me a way to go through here, and you can look through here and see any other changes that they've made to these. But most everything other than you've got new functionality that's been added to the project setup, one step further in getting everything into the project setup for your isometrics. And that's what they've added to the isometrics here. So that kind of concludes. Let me go ahead and hit cancel here. That kind of concludes what we can actually show you physically in here. In addition, there are a couple of other things that have been added to 2022 that you just can't see or can't really show you. Collaboration project support for the new Autodesk Construction Cloud. So BIM 360 has been changed to Autodesk Construction Cloud. Projects are supported here with that, with all the changes they made there. You actually got to see it a little bit there when I was doing the project compare, that I could open a project from the construction cloud and actually copy information from one project in the cloud to the project on my computer. So you had that ability there in the project compare, but it's fully supported now with the changes made there. AutoCAD Plant 3D now has object enablers that for Navisworks, to where it supports a lot more properties that it didn't support in the past in Navisworks, and all the nozzle detail information, which was not supported in previous versions of Plant 3D and Navisworks, are now all supported through the object enablers. So they've added new functionality there for information that can be passed to Navisworks. The plant content is now based on the new Python 3.7.9. So if you have done Python scripting in the past, you probably need to update your scripts to the new Python. You can actually go to the Python website, and they have a tool there for input for upgrading scripts from version 2 to the version 3.7.9. If you go to the help files of AutoCAD, they actually have a link there in the help files for getting those Python, for going to the Python and getting that tool. So you might need to upgrade those. Some of the stuff you've done, like if I've done some nozzles for tanks and stuff in the past, they're the same, nothing's changed, so I don't even have to upgrade them. But if you have any problems with any of your old Python scripts, you may want to upgrade those. And lastly, any new features in AutoCAD 2022 are also included in the Plant 3D 2022. We're not going to go through those new features because that would be in a What's New in AutoCAD 2022 webinar. So basically that kind of shows you everything that is available now in the new version of Plant 3D. And let's go ahead and take a look and see if there are any questions, or if you know of any off the top of your head, Brett. If you saw any, feel free to mention it to me while I try to find them and see if we have any questions.
There is just one outstanding question at the moment.
Okay, what's that?
Do offset settings export with the 3D model to real coordinates?
Not in the 3D model. 3D model is still going to be 0, 0, 0. It's only going to have to do with the ortho models. So basically, if you were creating something like a 3D isometric view or a 3D top view or something, you could create that in the ortho and then XREF that into your civil drawing instead of the model itself. But the 3D model is going to remain at 0, 0, 0. So who would be our sales contact for Plant 3D?
Rick, I'm working on that one right now. So you just leave that to me.
Yeah, that would be kind of hard for me to do. I can't even tell who asked the question right now on my screen. Are there any
another one? Another one just popped up also regarding coordinates. Are offset coordinates displayed when using ID or distance commands or dynamic inputs? No. The offset coordinate is strictly for the orthos.
Correct, strictly for the orthos. But you saw when I went to model space and did an ID of something in model space of the ortho, it gave me the offsetted locations.
Right, that's just in the ortho though, the model itself.
Right.
So if this is for the person who asked the question, if you're thinking you're exporting your model from Plant and you're going to bring it into something like Revit or Inventor, then your origin will still be 0, 0, which means you'll be moving it into place like you always have.
Right. Yeah, nothing as far as the model is going to change. That offset's only strictly for the ortho drawings themselves. Let's see. Somebody asked, can I use the location map in AutoCAD to use into orthographic offset Plant 3D 2022? You can use it. You're talking about the geolocation. You can use that in Plant, but it's not going to come over into the offset automatically, if that makes sense. They're two separate functions, but for instance, I use the geolocation to come up with those east-north locations that I used in this particular project, because if you ever taken my class, that project's located in Knoxville, Tennessee. So I went to the geolocation in AutoCAD of the Knoxville, found a place in Knoxville, Tennessee, and said, this is where I'm putting the plant, got those dimensions, and those were the ones I actually used in this webinar. That's where I came up with those dimensions. So you can use the geolocation of AutoCAD to get the actual numbers, but in AutoCAD Plant 3D, they have to be 0, 0, 0 in the model. So all it did was give me the information that I used then in my ortho offset location itself. So I actually used real geolocations. I just had to type them in manually into the offset location. And other than that, that's as close as I got. Basic training to well, on my screen you can see someone's asking, where can I get I'm proficient with AutoCAD 2D design, where can I get basic training to get started with AutoCAD 3D design. You can see here on my screen where I've got some training classes that we do for Plant 3D. So it's not going to be basic 3D for AutoCAD, but it'll be basic 3D. That AutoCAD Plant 3D new user class, we start drawing everything's in 3D in that particular class. Now we do touch on a little bit of the AutoCAD functionality for 3D, but not a lot of it. So we also offer some 3D classes for straight AutoCAD. To be honest with you, though, and my personal opinion is you don't really need to know how to draw 3D in AutoCAD to do 3D and Plant 3D. So that might actually be more beneficial for you to not know the AutoCAD 3D stuff in order to do 3D. See if there's any other questions that you see that you haven't answered, because I really don't know when some of these came in.
One I don't think we mentioned, is there an offset for isometric?
Not that I know of. They haven't done that one. So it's not going to have any effect on the isometrics. It's just for the ortho. Doesn't mean they won't in the future at some point, but right now they don't have that. That might be a good thing to add into the wish list. Like I said, that's I didn't add the offset location to the wish list, but I have seen it on there because I voted for it. Someone else had put that in there, and I had voted for that on the wish list. So they do pay attention to that ideas page wish list on the Autodesk.com's blogs. Matter of fact, I know there's a couple of things that I've put on there that are under review right now for future versions. So, I mean, they do pay attention to that stuff. Anything else? If not, and I don't see any new ones popping up there, so we'll go ahead and turn this back over to Ashley.
Okay, well, thank you, Rick, for the presentation, and thank you all for attending today. a reminder, there will be a short survey pop up as we close down, and also you will receive an email tomorrow with a link for the recording of today's presentation. And thanks for joining us, and have a great day, everyone.